Well, good morning, everyone. You caught me mid-sip, so I'm going to invite you to sit down and join me for a cup of coffee this morning, and we're going to have Cowboy Church together. I'm going to stray from my study of the book Walking Backwards, give you a little report from Fort Worth, Texas. Even though I'm not there, I'm there virtually right now. There behind me is the historic Will Rogers Coliseum. You can see it there. Built in 1936, I think, and last night it was the venue for the world's greatest horseman contest put on by the National Rein Cow Horse Association, which I'm a member and a competitor, non-pro competitor. And I had qualified to go there and compete in my non-pro class, the non-pro boxing cow horse class. But and I only say that because it pertains to what I'm going to tell you this morning. I, at the very last minute, decided not to go because of this problem I'm having with my shoulder, and I had surgery scheduled. So, as many of you know, I was scheduled to have a shoulder replacement with a reversal of the shoulder joint a couple of days ago on Friday, and as you can see, I am not in a sling. So I want to tell you more about that, the journey that I've had in the last couple of weeks and months with respect to that. But before we do, let's open with a word of prayer. Dear Father, I thank you for the rain that we just had and we sorely needed. We had a great rain. Thank you. And I just hope that the experience I've had this week and the last several months, that someone else that's listening in today or later can relate to that and that it can be helpful to them. So I just ask that in the name of your blessed Son, Jesus. Amen. Okay, so let me give you the backstory. I realize that most of my audience is of my age group, old friends from high school and college. And most of my church is older generation, and we've all got our health issues. We've all got our aches and pains. We've all got our various threats, and things that slow us down, bog us down physically, and that leads to emotional bogging down. It leads to us having to sometimes not be able to do the things that we want to do. And we don't like that. So it's the same way with me. And I'm only going to use my example, my story, so that perhaps you all can relate. And I say, hey, Ron, I still owe you that phone call. It's been a wild week, buddy. We'll get together soon. So here's the backstory on me. As a lot of you know, I've had a series of surgeries over the last 15 years. Cervical fusion in my neck, which went very well, very successful. 2 back surgeries, lower lumbar surgeries, which I would say are successful. I've got hardware in there. I got rods, and several discs in the lumbar are fused, and I've got the artificial discs in there that are contained in these cages that hold everything together. And it keeps me reasonably functional. In fact, I don't want to complain too much. And again, I go to a pain management doctor who is very skillful in giving me injections and also doing other procedures where they manipulate the nerves, do these radio frequency ablations. I had one done a few months ago, and it's keeping me relatively functional. I can do most of the things that I need to do and like to do and want to do. I did have a drop foot as a result of the back surgery that makes me walk funny. Not too much in pain, but I can't run anymore. But I walk a little bit funny. I kind of have to flop that foot out because I can't pick up my big toe. and it tends to drag. And I have got it caught on some things, a little crack in the ground that's not level, or a root or something. If I'm not careful, I've taken a few nosedives, but I've learned I've retrained my brain really to walk carefully, and I haven't fallen as a result in a while. But nonetheless, it's there. So I've had a total knee replacement on my right side, and my left side is starting to complain pretty badly. Wearing a brace on that, but at some point I'm going to have to deal with that, and probably that will be sooner than later. And then I had about a plantar fasciitis on my right side off and on the last couple of years, and that has really bothered me. And so between left knee and the right foot, I'm not walking very much, which means I'm getting out of shape. And people say, well, why do you still ride horses? And I say, well, because I have a 4 strong legs and a strong back and a good set of lungs underneath me. That's why I ride horses. It doesn't hurt to ride horses, or at least very much. So I still like to do that. And on top of the plantar fasciitis, about a year and a half ago, we were cleaning up from a big storm, and I had a bunch of big logs on my tailgate that I was taking to the burn pile. And as I was lifting one log out, another log rolled off and landed on the instep of my right foot. And I really thought I broke it at the time, but it didn't swell. So I didn't go to the doctor, and in a couple of weeks, it felt a lot better. Well, a few months ago, it started getting worse and worse. And I thought, well, it's just a plantar fasciitis. So I was doing all the things that everybody does, the frozen water bottle under the foot, and the stretching, and a TENS unit, and this thing that stretches your foot at night while you sleep. And it would get better, and then it would get worse. It would get better, and then it would get worse. But really, it's really bothering me. It was really bothering me. But in the meantime, as some of you know, and I know this is a long story, but I need to kind of give you the backstory so you can see where my mind's at, because I suspect that from time to time that your mind gets like my mind, okay, with relation to all these health issues. None of them are a threat to my life. And I know there's a lot of my friends that do have health issues that are a threat to their life. And I fully understand and appreciate that. Mine's just more of a threat to my functioning day to day in a way that I want to function. Let's put it that way. So anyways, about a year and a half ago, we had this hurricane come through, and it spun off some tornadoes. And we live in a mobile home here on the ranch, but we have a concrete block building about a half a mile away. And we're watching the news, and this tornado on the Doppler on the news is coming right across Lake Okeechobee, right at us. So I told Verna, I said, let's jump in the truck. We're going down to the building. I grabbed the dog, and down we went. And by the time we got to the building, it was raining sideways. So if a tornado was coming, you wouldn't be able to see it. And there's a slab for the handicap parking that's real close to the building. So I pull up on there. I jump out of the truck. I got the dog on the leash. And when I hit the concrete, I wiped out. I bent my knee backwards, the one that needs surgery. It was already bothering me, and hit my head on the side of the car. But what was really the worst thing is I landed on this shoulder, and I tore my rotator cuff, the labral tendons off of there. And that was in October a year ago. And in January last year, just past 13 months ago now, I had that repaired, and I was doing really well. I went through all the physical therapy and was a good boy, was doing the exercises, and was released from care, and continued to do the exercises. And I had a panel of fence come down about 6 months ago at the ranch, and I went to lift it up to put it where it needed to go so I could, nail it back up. And I heard a pop like the shot of a .22 rifle, and immediately pain shot through my arm, and I tore it again. And I didn't know how bad, so I kept trying to do these exercises and rehab it, and it would get a little better, but then I'd tear it again. I just kept getting these small tears. So finally, about November, yeah, it was November, I went and saw the doctor, had an MRI. He says, "Yep, you did it. You tore it off. It's about, you know," he said, "You see this? It's supposed to, it's supposed to be here, but it's here, okay? And we're going to either have to go back and reattach it, or we can do this complete shoulder reversal where they take your joint out and they put in a new artificial joint, which is upside down. And the reason behind that is it uses different muscles so you can raise your arm." And so I said, "Well, I guess we better do it." And we had to wait because he had given me a cortisone injection in November. You have to wait 3 months because the cortisone prevents healing after a surgery. So that gave me 3 months. We got everything scheduled. And in the meantime, I was babying my shoulder because it hurt, and but trying to carry on. And actually, I knew that I was going to be in a sling for 6 to 8 weeks, plus all the physical therapy. I knew it was going to be at least a 6-month deal, and some people told me a year. So I'm scrambling around trying to do everything that I needed, that I could do to kind of get ahead of things, So because I would be one-handed, and it would be my weak hand, my left hand. I'm a right-handed person for quite a while. So that's all going on, and of course that you have to go and you got to get an EKG and a chest X-ray and the blood work, and you got to get cleared by your primary doctor, and you got to get all these things lined up. And everything was going forward, everything's moving forward. And in the meantime, I'm trying to do all this stuff, and my right foot is killing me. And I couldn't take any prednisone to cool it off because the surgery was coming. And it got to the point where I'm pretty unhappy, pretty unhappy camper, because it was hard to stand very long, and it was hard to walk very far. And it would be okay in the morning, but by the end of the day, I'd be a grumpy old cuss. And of course, I'd take it out on the person I love the most, my wife, Verna. So anyhow, this is all going, but we're moving forward. We're moving forward. Well, about 2 weeks ago, there's a few things that needed to be really taken care of before the surgery. One of them is that because I go to this pain management doctor, and he gives me tramadol, which is the weakest narcotic painkiller, but it is a narcotic, so it is a controlled substance. It didn't used to be, but about 4 or 5 years ago, they made it a controlled substance because people were taking large doses of this when they couldn't get their drug of choice, which was usually something stronger like oxycodone. Well, in order for me to have the doctor, my surgeon, prescribe post-op meds, my pain management doctor had to give them authorization. And I saw this coming, well, actually 3 weeks out. I went to my doctor, and I won't name his name. Went there, and I didn't see the doc. I saw, the nurse assistant, and it was just a regular follow-up. And, you have to go every couple of months when you're in their care. And I was doing relatively well. And I said, "Look, I'm going to have this shoulder surgery, and the surgeon's going to need an authorization. Would you go ahead and give it to me? Because I'm going to see him tomorrow for my, last visit before the surgery." And she says, no, they need to call us. I said, "Well, it would be a lot easier if, I could just have this in hand, and it would be a done deal. That would be one less thing that needs to be done." And she said, "No, I'm just going to put a note in your chart, and they'll call us." Well, okay. So I get a hold of the surgeon's office. I said, "Listen, it's hard to get my pain management doctor's office on the phone. They have the automated system, and they have the patients, and you have to go through a patient portal in order to get appointments and really have any contact with the doctor. They just don't answer their phone, and they don't return their calls very well." So the medical assistant at the surgeon's office, she got on it ahead of time, and she made numerous phone calls. And by Monday last week, when the surgery now is on Friday, I called them. I said, "How's it going with that?" And she said, "I'm still working on it." Well, Wednesday I called back and she says, "I'm really frustrated. I've left several messages and I haven't had, told them what we need, and they're not showing me any courtesy at all. I mean, usually when one doctor's office calls another doctor's office, it's important, right? And they need to, get the information that they need." So I tried to get on the phone, and now the anxiety level is really going up. It's like, because I am not going to come home on a Friday night with nothing but Tramadol and Tylenol after they've taken my arm apart and put it back together, and then the weekend's coming, right? That would not be very smart. At the same time, the doctor, it was an outpatient surgery. They're going to send me a physical therapist and nurse in to my home every couple of days to check on me post-surgically. Well, they could not find, nor could I find, a home health care agency that serves our area that takes our insurance, which is a major carrier. I'm not going to name any names. So there's these two looming issues. So now it's 48 hours prior to the surgery, and in the meantime, I had arranged to get a recliner in the room, because you have to sleep in a recliner. You can't sleep in your bed for like 6 weeks. And my recliner, the controls are on the right side, and I can't, with my arm in a sling, I wouldn't be able to work the recliner. So we get a recliner that has ambidextrous controls. Got this all organized. We're all ready to go. I'm scrambling around trying to get all these jobs done so that I can just sit in my chair with my laptop and some books and ride this thing out, when I get home. So the anxiety level is really there, and my foot's throbbing. So in the meantime, earlier in the week, I started feeling getting these thoughts that I shouldn't be doing this. So here's where I want to bring God into the conversation, because the mistake is that I did not do this early enough. Now, I believe God speaks to us in various ways. Obviously, he speaks to us through his written word, the Bible. And the problem with my situation in this particular instance is that I know of no verses in the Bible that directly spoke to my problem. Okay. Whether I should go through with this surgery or postpone it. Couldn't find it. But God also speaks to us through that still small voice. He speaks into our hearts, into our thoughts, because his spirit resides in us. The spirit of Jesus lives in us. He will speak to us in our thoughts. And I was really trying to not listen, because what he was saying is that don't rush into this. At the same time, he also speaks to us through other people. And I had several, two fellows in particular that that are mature Christians that were really concerned, and they were just sharing with me that I shouldn't rush into this, that perhaps I should postpone this because my shoulder, they were saying, well, how's it feel? And I'm like, well, look, this is the shoulder right here, guys. Right now, there's a little bit of mild pain, but not much. Okay, not much. If I were to try to swing a rope, yeah, that would hurt pretty bad, and I might do some damage. A couple weeks ago, I couldn't even. I needed to use my screw gun to screw a screw into the piece of fence about this high, and I had to do like this. And I also was out with some friends on the gun range, and I wanted to shoot my pistol. And when I tried to bring it up there, it hurt too much. Well, right now I could do that. Now my shoulder didn't get miraculously better. Those tendons are still torn off the bone, but other muscles apparently are compensating, and it may get torn again. But the point that my friends were making was that, look, right now you're you're relatively comfortable, right? And you're relatively functional, right? You know, what if you have that artificial joint in and you come off your horse and land on it and do something that can't be fixed? So I'm like, yeah, but I'm prepared to take that risk if I can, you know, go back to doing a lot of other things. So that's looming in my mind, and I'm mulling this over. And in spite of their protestations, I can continue to go forward with this project. So finally, God speaks to us through our circumstances. He opens doors and closes doors. So by Wednesday night, I'm praying, and I clearly heard the Lord said, "Get your foot fixed. Don't do your shoulder right now, because your foot's making you miserable, and your foot's making you more dysfunctional and emotionally unstable and unhappy and unrelational than your shoulder is. Get your foot fixed." And I'm like, well, we still have these two loose ends about I don't have any pain meds after the surgery, and I don't have a home health care nurse. I said, tomorrow morning, Thursday morning, I'm going to give it one last shot. And the Lord says, you make a decision by noon. Okay. I'm like, okay. But he says, get your foot fixed. So I didn't sleep well. And then the morning came, and I'm praying and trying to, I'm like, can you be a little more clear? Did I maybe not hear you right? So I called the home health care agency, and they were supposed to be like deciding, this very last one agency that maybe would come out, and they wouldn't give me an answer. They said, well, call us this afternoon. I said, my surgery's tomorrow morning at 8:30. And by noon, I said, that's it. I called Verna. I said, that's it. I'm not doing it. And I called the doctor's office, the surgical coordinator. I told her exactly. I said, I'm a spiritual guy. The Lord's telling me not to do this right now. And I really appreciate everything y'all have done. I mean, I'd already paid in advance. I paid the surgery center. I paid the doctor. I said, I can't do it right now. She said, Tom, I fully understand. Just let us know what you want to do when you're ready. Okay. So thank you very much. And it was like this huge weight, this huge burden was lifted off of me. And I feel real good about it. Then I was telling another friend of mine, the whole story. And he said, hey, listen, I know this really good group of doctors down in Palm Beach, and they've got a guy that does nothing but feet. The other doctor's office that I was going to, they didn't have a guy that specialized in feet. Well, lo and behold, they take my insurance. They're 47 miles away, and I was able to get an appointment next Wednesday afternoon, which is pretty fast these days for a new patient. So that's the direction we're going into. My point is, all of you guys out there that are dealing with similar type issues, listen to what the Lord's telling you in your heart. Okay? Listen to what he's telling you, whether he's telling you to get the surgery or get whatever the treatment is that the doctors want. Listen to that still small voice. Consider the counsel of those that you trust. It may very well be that the Lord is sending those people to you to give you counsel. Look at the circumstances. I'm not saying whenever you face a circumstance that's negative, that's in the way, that you just give up. But take all of this as a composite, as I finally had to. It wasn't any one thing. It was a composite. And then make your decision based on what you believe the Lord is directing you to do. because he wants what's best for you. He definitely wants what's best for you. And when you make that decision, that the fog will lift. The heaviness will go away. That's what happened with me. Oh, and by the way, later on Thursday night, I started developing this froggy voice and a runny nose and a congested chest, which would have been very dangerous if I'd have had 3 hours of anesthesia the next morning, and it isn't better. Imagine that. Imagine that. So that's my message for this week. Next week, Lord willing, we'll continue our study of walking backward. And I want to say congratulations last night. The World's Greatest Horseman competition, the championship, Jordan Williams did a fantastic job. It was very exciting. And that's one of the greatest titles in Western sports is World's Greatest Horseman. So that said, I'm going to sign off. Adios, happy trails, and God bless.